Well, let's just start talking a little bit about what happened here yesterday with the Jets. And we had Rex Ryan and John Idzik, the general manager, talking. Did you notice anything different about the way things worked out?
I thought it was interesting that it seemed like they were kind of in damage control mode. It was kind of in response, seemed to be in response to Darrelle Revis coming out and saying, how frustrated he was and wasn't able to get answers about, all the rumors about him being traded. But I don't know that they did that great of a job of damage control, just because they kept, leaving so much wiggle room. They kept describing him as right now Darrelle Revis is a Jet, and but things could change, and we're not trying to trade him, but you never know what could happen, and so I think it's still clear that he's very much on the table, and that they're probably going to trade him, or at least try.
One thing that I noticed was that John Idzik really did a 180, though, at least in the way that he talked about Revis. I mean, after he was hired, he talked about Revis as, one of the 53 that he's going to evaluate on the roster. And this time, he really talked about him as a great player, someone that the Jets want to have on the team. Seems like he really did a lot more kind of PR with this discussion than he did in the past, which is good. But I agree with you a little bit also. They left the door open for the possibility of a trade, certainly, which is really in marked contrast to some of the other GMs here who, when they're asked about their best player, will say things like, he's a big part of what's going to happen with us in 2013. And the Jets didn't say that, which is really different from the way that some other teams talk about their franchise players.
Well, I think it was because they were trying to serve two masters. They were trying to, publicly calm down Darrelle Revis, but at the same time, let the rest of the league know that, wink, wink, the door's still open. We're still, our phone is still, available for you to ring us with your best offer, and basically, to me, it just makes sense. Darrelle Revis is not happy with this contract situation. The Jets are in a bad financial situation, and he's going to be able to walk away for basically nothing other than a draft pick next year. And so it just makes sense for them to where they are. They're not in danger of winning a Super Bowl anytime soon. It doesn't seem like, or at least not in 2013. So why not, use this very valuable asset and possibly rebuild your team quicker.
Well, and they've got a risk because you don't know exactly how much that injury and recovering from that injury is going to affect Revis's ability to play. If he takes 10% off from the ACL injury and isn't able to come back completely. And I think that they're in a situation now where they have maximum leverage when it comes to deciding whether or not to have another team assume the risk for Revis's recovery. And if they do that now, then they could get a lot more for him, maybe they think, than if they wait and it ends up that he's not kind of what he used to be. So,
Right.
so this is a pretty pivotal position right now for them to be in. I mean, on the other hand, they could just wait, see how he recovers, and if he comes back and he's 100% Revis, then they could try to get maximum value for him from another team in the middle of the season. But there are a lot of options here, and they're clearly keeping everything on the table. The other thing I thought was interesting was Tim Tebow, and the way that Rex Ryan talked about him. From my point, it looks like he's not going to be on the team for much longer. When they talked about that quarterback competition that they want to have next year with Mark Sanchez, Rex Ryan was asked, is Tim Tebow going to be a part of that? And he hedged like crazy. What did you think of the way he handled that situation, Bart?
I think it was another way of kind of sending a message to everyone else. You don't want to. They have it in their mind that they might be able to trade Tim Tebow, and I just don't see how that's possible. But they're just trying to play it smart at this stage, and not publicly denigrate him or give the league the impression, at least in their mind, that they're going to cut him. So because they think, like I said, they think that they can maybe get something for him. I don't know how much longer they can continue this charade. I think it's probably going to be pretty clear after the combine, because they're obviously going to, all the other teams are here, so they're going to put out a lot of feelers, and I think the cold response that they get is probably going to convince them that that trading him is just not really an option, and so I would think that something would be done with Tebow in short order. I would be surprised if they let him get to the point where he participates in the mini camp, just because then it's the distraction, the sideshow all over again, and I just don't think that Idzik wants that in his first mini camp.
Yeah, I don't know that Tebow necessarily wants that either.
Exactly. Although at this stage, I don't know it really matters what Tim Tebow wants. I think his career is at a point where it's in everybody else's hands and not his.
He's in an interesting spot because you've got to think he's still got a huge fan base. Still, a lot of people want to see him play, and yet I don't think that there are a lot of NFL teams that want him as a starter, obviously, or they would be knocking on the Jets' door. And I don't think there are a lot of teams that want him as a backup because of the sideshow. Everybody has had a front row seat to that last year. It did not do the Jets any good, and trying to game plan for a backup ended up being a disaster for this offense. So it is an interesting situation. Where could he possibly end up? Does he have to go to Canada? I mean, yeah, is his career over? Does he convert to do play some other kind of position? That's certainly something that he hasn't really shown much interest in doing. So kind of what's the next step?
I'm going to be curious to see too. I think the one wild card in this is New England. I think that's the one. There's a situation where Bill Belichick doesn't really care what the fans think and is going to do what he's going to do. And, I think I know he likes Tebow. They have Josh McDaniels, the guy that drafted Tebow in Denver in the first round, is the offensive coordinator there. And, I definitely, and Belichick loves using guys at different unorthodox positions. Look at all the receivers.
The next Wes Welker.
Yeah, exactly. He could have. I could see him having Tebow play linebacker. It's like they had Aaron Hernandez covering people last year or playing running back, and so I think Belichick loves those Swiss Army knife guys, and maybe he sees Tebow as that. But there's no way that he's going to give the Jets anything in return. I think if Belichick is interested in taking Tebow, that he's just waiting in the weeds and waiting for them to cut him.
Yeah, to get him as cheap as possible and then shock the world by turning him into a football player.
Right.
Some of the other things that were discussed yesterday, Rex Ryan talked a little bit about Rob Ryan, his brother, kind of whether or not he was going to pick him up. It sounded like he had never been really interested in having him on his staff. I thought that was a little interesting. Some of the other things he also addressed, Bart Scott, the fact that he had to cut a number of players, including Bart Scott, who he brought in on his first day in 2009 when he was hired as a coach. That's got to have been tough. Anything else stand out for you in terms of what the Jets were doing?
No, it didn't really surprise me. They mainly also talked about Mark Sanchez, not having any competition, or I'm sorry, going to have a lot of competition, and so that's that. But that wasn't a surprise. I mean, I think that's been obvious, all along. This is going to be interesting. It's the whole Sanchez circus. They're stuck with him for another year, and we're going to see. I can't imagine that John Idzik is excited about that prospect, and he didn't really seem that excited about it yesterday. It's not exactly like his eyes started gleaming when the mere topic of Mark Sanchez was brought up. So, I think they just want to get through this year and then move on. I think both parties, it almost seems like a death march on both sides. When it comes to Sanchez, it just
he's got an uphill battle, that's for sure. Considering the way he played this year, he's such a confidence guy, and he plays well when I think he has buy-in from everybody, and it's not going to come this year. I think there are so many question marks on the table. His performance, his interceptions, the last 2 seasons now have been so high that I think he's going to have a lot of doubters from the beginning, and that's something that he hasn't had at any year. I don't think he hasn't had that kind of skepticism staring him in the face. And also the fan base. The fan base not happy with Mark Sanchez right now. Kind of, certainly liked getting to the AFC championship games the first 2 years, but hasn't seen a lot last year and even the year before to get excited about. So I think that's an uphill battle, and it'll be interesting to see how they respond to him when he first walks out at MetLife Stadium this season.
Yeah, I think the word is toxic. Yeah, to describe the atmosphere if Sanchez is anywhere close to being the starting quarterback next year.
Yeah. So let's talk. What do? Are they going to get a quarterback here? Are they looking at quarterbacks here? But they're probably not going to be. I don't know if they're in position to get one high enough. Bringing in a veteran, Tavares Jackson, re-signed with the Bills. Mike Vick is going to be staying in Philadelphia. The options there aren't a heck of a lot of them.
No, and from the veteran standpoint, it's kind of a disaster for the Jets because what's left. You think maybe Matt Flynn from Seattle might be available in a trade. It just came from the Seahawks, but he's not a proven guy. And then there's Alex Smith, and who knows? I just don't.
He's expensive.
Yeah. You're not going to be able to trade for him because he makes almost $10 million and it's guaranteed. And if the 49ers end up releasing him, there's probably going to be a lot of competition, and the Jets are right up against it cap-wise. So I think if they're going to do anything quarterback-wise, it's probably going to have to be through the draft. And unfortunately for them, this is just as bad of a quarterback class in the draft as it is in veteran free agency, or maybe even worse depending on some draft people you talk to. So
they should have gone last year.
It's difficult, exactly.
They needed to be in this position last year.
Yeah, exactly.
When they had a whole crop of quarterbacks to choose from. We're wrap it up. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us here in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine. I'm Jane McManus for ESPN.com, joined by the lovely Bart Hubbuch from the New York Post. Thanks for joining us.
Take care.